So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Jessica. I've been working in the VFX and animation industry for more than a decade as a software engineer. I'm currently in a leadership position at a place called Mindshare. And if you want, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any question or not after the talk. So first, what the goal of this series? Like mentioned earlier on, we want you to be able to create a very simple interface first. So something where you can just execute your code with a user interface that you can distribute to anybody. We also want you to, in the second session, to be able to gather some information, be it a text field or drop-down menu, and etc. And in the session 3, 4, and 5, we're going to go through the following interface. And we're going to decompose this interface and see how you can write it, how you can use Qt to basically write a more complex interface, but still simple. So what is Qt? So Qt is a widget library. As well, we have their own render engine. It's cross-platform, meaning you work on Linux, Windows, Mac, Android Async as well, and a few other mobile devices. It's used by a lot of applications like Google Earth, VirtualBox, TeamViewer, or KDE. There's 2 kinds of licenses available. So you have commercial licenses as well as open source licenses. And as the track is for, there is Python bindings for it. So there's 2 bindings available. You have PyQt and you have PySide. And as a quick mention, Qt also come with an interface to design your interface. It's called Qt Designer. We're not going to see it in that series, but I encourage you to take a look. It's very good for prototyping or to do like interface as well. If you don't want to do a lot of code or if you don't want to do any complex interaction. Now for a brief history of PyQt and PySide. Why there is 2 versions, basically. So what happened is that PyQt was developed by Phil Thompson of Riverbank Computing, and it's been around for many years. The first version was supporting Qt 2, and in 2009 actually, Nokia, who at the time was owning the Qt toolkit, wanted to make Python binding with a more permissive LGPL license. Well, PyQt is under GPL or commercial license. So the 2 interfaces are rather similar, and the biggest difference, I would say, is mostly the licensing at this time. While PyQt was the first to be around, PySide became the official binding. So you have the Qt company, which basically took over PySide and made it the official binding. As a funny thing, because Nokia is the one who've done it, the name PySide came from the Finnish side, which actually means binder. So it's Py binder. There's a few API difference between PyQt and PySide, and we're going to go over them shortly. And as you can see, there is multiple versions of Qt, and there's corresponding binding for them. So we have until Qt 4, there was only PyQt. So Qt 2, Qt 3 had PyQt 2 and PyQt 3. starting with Qt 4, we had PyQt 4, and we had PySide, which was the first version. And then when Qt 5 was introduced, you had PyQt 5, and then PySide 2, which was introduced as well. And then when Qt 6 was done, which was rather recent, PyQt 6 and PySide 6 got released. So you can see that PySide jumped from 2 to 6 to match the version of Qt. And those versions got released a year ago. So December 2020 for PySide and January 2021 for PyQt. Something to note though, and why there's API difference, and online you might see a lot of example and tutorials like geared toward PyQt 5 is because when Qt 5 got released, PyQt 5 was available like rather quickly around mid-2016, but the first stable version of PySide only got released 2 years later. Since then, PySide caught up, and because it became the official binding, PySide actually was released first, and I have a few more functions that we're going to see a bit later. If I had to choose, like usually I will go with PySide for one reason, the license. So the LGPL license does not require you to share the source code of your own application. Even if you bundle them with PySide, you just need to make sure that any modification you do to the source code of PySide, so what's covered by the LGPL license, is made available. So that's very good if you do any kind of development, like internal development, open source development, or commercial one as well. Now we're going to go through the API differences before we start our first application. That's just to give you an overview of like what's different between the two. Just so yeah, you keep it in mind when you look at example online. It's very easy to translate one to the other, and there's a few tips and tricks I will show you later. So the biggest difference in my mind is the signal and slot. So Qt is an event-driven like toolkit, meaning that when a user do something, it triggers an event. That's your signal and your slot. So for example, if somebody do a right click, is going to trigger a right click, a signal, which would say, hey, there's a right click mouse button. That's going to be an event. And then you have your slot, which is what you can connect to your signal. So as you can see, PyQt's signal is PyQt signal, while PySide is signal and slot. So that's just something to remember. Another difference is the exec or the exec underscore method. So what happened, and you can see it here actually in that example below, when we want to execute our application. So why is it different? It all comes down to Python 2 and Python 3. So when in Python 2.7, the exec was a keyword. So in order to not stomp on vanilla Python, both PyQt 4 and PySide rename the exec method to exec underscore to have a deconflict. Python 3 remove that keyword, so it was freed up again. However, while PyQt moved to only support Python 3, and as you can see below, took over that keyword, PySide was supporting PySide 2 actually was supporting both pattern 2 and 3. So they kept the keyword, and even though PySide 6 only support Python 3, they kept the exec underscore method. So same again, something to keep in mind. Another major difference, and like I mentioned, if you are using Qt Designer, you may create .ui files. So that's like I mentioned, a very easy way to create a prototype or to create the base of your interface. If you want to use a UI file, you have two ways to deal with them. You can either convert them to Python code. So PyQt have PyUIC 5 or 6, and PySide have PySide 2 or 6 underscore, sorry, dash UIC. So that's a command we'll come up with them. You can give the path to your UI file, and it's going to convert it to a Python file. One difference between those commands is that the PyQt one also have an X flag that you can use to build an executable demo of your UI file. That's not available on PySide, unfortunately, which is something nice. Like I said, if you do any kind of like demo, like a prototype of an interface. However, they work the same way, apart from this little detail. Now, when it comes to loading the UI file, that's when things differ a fair bit. But it's not a big difference in the end. So PyQt have a module called UIC, and you can use UIC.loadUI, as you can see on the left, and give the path to your UI. Now we'll create an object straight with that method. So the loadUI method create an object in that example, a QMain window, and you can just use that object. However, with PySide, you need to use the QUI loader in Qt UI tools. You first need to create an instance of it, then you can use the load method in it. After that, it's the same. No, that cover difference between PyQt 5 and PySide 2. Those differences are also in PyQt 6 and PySide 6. However, with the release of Qt 6 and those the two corresponding bindings, a few differences came up as well. So mostly in favor of PySide 6. So PySide 6 is more backward compatible and have a few more features as well. So one that PySide 6 have, but PyQt 6 doesn't have, is the feature flag, which basically, if you enable this, you can make your code a bit more Pythonic, and you can have a snake case variable name, as well as the ability to assign and access properties directly, rather than using getter and setter functions. It's still not used a lot, so that's a minor difference. No, I'm pretty excited about it. Now, well, it's always a bit tricky to work with Qt code sometimes, because you don't know, like, should you follow step 8 or more Qt. Another big difference, which are covered by those 2 points, and that's the one which is a bit annoying between PyQt 6 and PySide 6. PyQt 6 drops support for short names, for enums and flags. So PyQt 6 needs to have fully qualified name for both enum and flags, while before PyQt and PySide had both had shortcuts. So it was making the code more portable between the one and the other. So as you can see, if you want to align left, you need to use Qt.alignment in PyQt 6 versus PySide 6, which is Qt.alignment flag. However, PySide 6 still support short name. So you can do Qt.align left. You can exclude the alignment flag. Now, having said that, of course, there's abstraction layers for it, which are very, very useful. Personally, I use Qt a lot at work, and I do use an abstraction layer that just make things way, way, way easier. I don't have to think about having to support both in my code, especially since in my line of work, I need to deal with both PySide and PyQt, depending on which DCC I target. So there's two that I recommend. You have QtPy from Motosaur. That one supports PyQt 4, PyQt 5, PySide 2, as well as PySide. Meaning that your code is portable between any of those versions. Very useful as well if you go from one version of PyQt PySide to the other. And you have the other one, which is QtPy. So very, very similar name. That one support PyQt 6, 5, as well as PySide 2 and 6. So if you're dealing with more legacy software, you may have to use that one. If you use more recent libraries, you can just use that one. And I gave you an example using Qt.py. So as you can see, instead of doing from PySide 2 or from PyQt 5, you just do from Qt and you import what you need. So now we're going to the fun stuff. We're going to set up our environments. So I'm going to bring my terminal here, and that's where you can you can do it with me. So just follow what's on the screen. I also put a link before in the chat, so you can go to the install.md file that I provided. I can give, I'm going to send the link again. So first we need to clone the repository. Then we're going to create an environment for it. So it's pretty straightforward. And then we install the requirements. So there is a requirement file in that repository that you can just use to install what you need. So we're going to use PySide 2. And the other library, so PySide 2 also installs Sheboken. As for NumPy and SciPy, that's going to be used in session 3, 4, and 5 for the interface I showed you before. Yes, I'm going to put the what we need. So I'm going to give everybody a minute or two just to make sure you're set and ready to go. In the meantime, I'm going to open my code editor. So can everybody do like a thumbs up or a to tell me they're good to move on? or press B if you still need a tiny bit of time. Thank you. I forgot to do that. I'm going to zoom in. That good? Good enough? Cool. Thank you. So if you do have the repository clone, and you can go into source session 1, and we have multiple steps here. So I'm first going to show you what we're going to write. So we're going to create a small application. We have one button, and when you run it, you execute some code. In our case, it's going to change the color of that button. So we're going to start with the step 1. So you want to import PySide to you, and from it you want to import Qt widget for now. You can also import Qt GUI that we're going to use in another step. So most of the time you're going to use Qt widgets, Qt GUI, as well as Qt core. That's the main 3 modules that you're going to use most of the time. So I like to basically import them when I start a new application. So now what do we want to do? So because we want to create an application, we're first going to create a new Qmin window. So we're going to create a new class that we call run button win. That's going to inherit a Qt widget Qmin window. Then we're going to initialize this class because we want to do some stuff later on when we initialize the class. So that's good if you want to change the title, move it around. So I like to often center my window based on the screen size or the parent widgets. You can also use this method and create a Q dialog. That's very useful if you're going to call something from another Qt widget. Now, when you're done with that, we're going to basically, and that's what you want to use if you create a standalone application. So basically, you want to first create a Q application that's going to handle your Qmin window. So that's going to basically be the bridge between your Qmin window and your system. So we create a Q application. Then we create a new instance of our run button window class. Then we're going to show it. So that's very important. You can execute a Qt Q widgets, or you can show it in that case. Sorry. The recording will be available in about a week. So don't worry. Anyway, to go back. So basically, we just want to show our window. We say we have a Qmin window. Just show it on screen. And then when we're done, we just want to execute the application. So basically, if we don't execute the application, it's not going to show our window. So you can see I execute, it does work, but it doesn't show the application until it doesn't show the Qmin window until you execute the application. Like that. So as you can see here, we have an empty we just have an empty window, and the name is based on the on your module name, on your file name here. Okay, I'm going to wait a tiny bit before I move on to the next step. If you have any question, just type it in the chat, and I can explain some concept a bit more, or we can explain them a bit more during the QA as well. We have a large QA period, so you don't have to worry about it. So for the next step, now that we have a window, we want to set the name of that window, we want to resize it, and we want to create a button. So first, we're going to use the set windows title method to just set the number for window. So if we do that, you can see that our window goes from the file name to what we set here. So you can give, that will be like your application name or anything that you want. Often I like to put the version name, like I like to put the version of the application in the name. That's give me a very quick way, like to ask my user which version are you running. So for them, they see, okay, like I see like it's random button color UI v001. So you can do anything you want. It's just a string. Then we set the size of our window. So if I go back to step 1, you can see that our window have a certain size. So we can change the size of that. As you can see, I change the width. Oh, I'm sorry. I change the width of it, and it change the width of the human window. So concerning the size of it, you can give a fixed size. You can calculate the size based on the screen. I will show you that in session 3. Or you can maybe like use a preference as well. That I will also show in session 3, 4, and 5. You can save the size when your window gets closed, for example. And now we can create our button. So the way it's working is that everything is a Q widget. So everything, almost everything, inherits the Q widget class. So you can look at the documentation. We're going to go through the documentation in 2 weeks during session 2, how to read documentation and so on. But everything that's pretty much everything that is accessed through Qt widgets inherits Q widgets, so you have access to a lot of methods from it. So we want to create a button. So the name of the widgets for a button is called Q push button. So we're going to create that, and we give the text to display on the button, and we also tell what the parent of that button. So in our case, the parent of that button is Q main window. That's going to become important a bit later on. I will show you why. But basically, right now we have a window, and we have a button that you can press, but that button do nothing. So that's a very, very basic interface, and you can work that way where like you build your interface and then you hook stuff up. And that's usually how I work. I split my work into a core library. I do my interface, and then I hook stuff up to actually execute whichever function I need to run. Now we go on step 3, which is going to be our last step actually for today. So I'm going to spend a bit more time, and we can answer any of your questions as well. Oh, I forgot to mention I did put a logger here. That was just to print some information, so you can ignore that part here. We are going to use the random library just to generate some random colors. So now that we have our button, we want to create a function which is going to run when we press that button. So in our case, we're going to create the set random button color, and I will go over it over the palette thing later on, but I'm going to go back here. So you can see that basically, as I mentioned, Qt is event-driven. And there's this concept of signal and slots. So basically, all of our Q widgets have a signal, and they're documented in the UI. So, for example, the Q push button, one of its signal is press, meaning that when the button is pressed, it's going to emit a signal. When a signal is emitted, it's going to we connect that signal to this function, meaning that when this button that we created here is pressed, connect to that function, meaning that run this function. So as you can see here, when we hover, nothing happens. When we press, we execute our function. You have multiple ones for buttons. So you have double click, I believe. Let me double check what you have for Q push button. So Q push button actually inherits from Q abstract button. Which is defined from Koubi. Okay, so you have a few signals. You have click, press, release, or toggle. So that's very interesting. So for example, I said it, so when you press the button, it's going to execute the function. You can also do on release like that. Meaning that if I press, nothing happens. Once I release, it runs my function. That's very interesting because you can basically combine those two together. So for example, I can create a second function, which is going to get triggered when you release the button. So basically, we can basically run a function when we press the button, run another one when we release this button. So if I press, it changes the color. When I release, I print a log message, as you can see here. So press, the button color change, I release, and it prints something. So you can use that to basically either change some operation, or you can also use it, and that's why I mostly use that, to control how user interacts with your widgets, basically. So do they want something like when you press, when you release, or when you toggle something? I can also show you something. You can also change our button. If we release our button, and we can change the text, for example. So you have a set text method available. As you can see here. So when I release it, just change the text of our button. So that's something that you can do as well, for example. And if we, like I mentioned, every widget have their own signal. So if you like create a slider, there's a signal when the value change. And you can connect that to a function. You can also connect that to another widget, or you can connect that to a function, which is going to change some UI information. That's what we're going to see in the next session. How to basically press a button and change our UI, or move a slider and change some widget in our UI. Now to go back to our function. So you can see that when I press the command, I change the color information. So when I've done, I pick up some random RGB value, as you can see here. Then I created a QPalette instance. I set the color of the button in that palette to be our RGB values. Then I apply the palette to the current human window instance that we just created, actually, that we created over here. So what does this stuff do? It changes the theme. Basically, a palette is kind of like a theme. Think of it of like the theme of your application. So you can customize like how your application looks like. And if you remember the screenshot of the application that we're going to build in session 3.5, you can see that this theme was a dark theme. That's how it was done, basically. I created a custom QPalette, I set my color, and I apply this palette to the whole interface. Something to note, you are not limited to using QPalette. Qt also supports CSS. So you can actually use style sheets to basically apply a theme to your interface. And you can even change your interface theme based on various CSS. Thank you, Stephanie, for helping out people. Yeah, so that's how you can create a very, very basic interface. So if we put everything together, we basically first import like the Qt binding as PySide 2. We create a human window. In the init function, we set a window title. We set the size that we want. We create a QPage button, and we connect the press signal of that QPage button to our function. Our function generates random colors and apply a theme to the button. Something you can do as well, you can you could have changed how you structure your things a bit. So you could have say when something is shown, do an operation. So we can take that, for example. Something I like to do is, and that's very useful if you need to gather information from some places. I like to I like to put a refresh, basically. So when you show the window, you can, for example, you can choose to resize the window at this time. So not when you initialize, but when you show the window. That's very interesting if you want to create your instance once and you don't want to create a new instance of your window. You want to use the same instance, but you still want to have some sort of refresh of your interface when you show it again. And then the last part was to basically deal with like how do we trigger our application? How do we show it? So like I mentioned, you create a Q application, you create a window instance, you show it, then you execute your application. And that's when you have the, for example, the difference between PyQt and PySide. If it was PyQt, you would have to do that. So I'm going to give you a small preview of what we're going to do on the session two. Just so you know, we're going to have two interfaces. We're going to basically have one where we can type something. So that's very useful if you want to gather information from a user. And we're also going to see how we can display some information to the user. So either display some error, or in that case, asking them what they want to do. So I use file saving, for example. And we are done for today. We're going to move on to the Q&A. So I'm going to take a look at the question that you guys had. So one of the questions is, can you show please how to code these steps? Are you are you talking about these steps to install the environment with pip? Oh, okay, sorry. So basically, as you can see here, I do have a terminal here. I can bring my terminal from here. If I can, maybe. And there's a trick which will work on Windows that I will explain shortly as well. So you can go to the source, session 1, and you can just basically code your Python script. Oh, sorry. You need to make sure it's executable, and you can just basically call it like that. So yeah, I did lose my window. Or you can just call it with Python. So you do Python and you just yeah, actually that's the easiest method. If you want to call it from the command line as a standard application, you need to do something else, but that's going to be covered a bit in another section. But yeah, Yeah, you just call Python and code your script like that. On Windows, and I just forgot, so you will have to excuse me. If you name your script PyQt, you can actually just double click on it and you will actually execute your script. So I don't know if it works on Linux. No, it does not work on Linux. But yeah, if you're on Windows, you can name your file PYW and you can distribute that, provided that the user have both Python and PySide or PyQt installed on their machine. If you need to package stuff up, that's another topic, and you go back to how to distribute your Python application. But we're not going to cover that today. So I don't know if there's any more question. Oh, there's another one. How are they connected? So when you talk about connected, like what do you mean? Like how do we connect the button to our function? How those one are connected? Those steps are just, those Python files are just made to show you step by step. So basically, if you want to test that at home, you can, this file over there is the final file we have everything. So you can just choose to just open that file and read it through. I did put some comment here about what's being done at every step. Or you can go and open every step. And for example, if you compare those two, this one only creates the command window and only execute it. So like I mentioned, that just create a blank window. And on that one, we do a few more steps. We set our title, we resize it, and we create our first widget. So that blank UI would just do nothing. And on the last step, that's where we connect our button to our function and where we have our function. Yeah, you can call them in sequence if you want. So you can start and look at step 1, step 2, or step 3. So, or you can just, depending on how you prefer to learn, you can just take a look at this file over there and just execute everything. So that one is the final interface. So to give you another preview, while we wait for people to type their question, the interface we want to do in the end, if you haven't seen the video, is that one. So as you can see, we have a slider, and when we move this slider, we update this widget here. That's a custom widget. So the good thing about Qt is that while you can do some very basic UI, like the UI we've just done, you can really extend it, and you can go into creating custom widgets. So because Qt render their own widgets, you can basically paint. That's how it's called. Like you have the painter, so you can paint any kind of widget you want. So you can do some very complex interface. You can do some very custom looking interface as well. And that's very nice. So in that example, like that's a custom widgets that are made, which basically draw points and lines in 3D space. And when you connect the value change of the slider, it will update the widget. Something to note, I mentioned theme and CSS. That one can be done with CSS. For example, the slider. You can change our slider look with CSS. You can trigger some events. So if I press this button, I can show and hide part of my interface. If I change that, update the text here. If I change, and also if I change the method, I also refresh this custom widget. Here I have some, I have like a system to have shortcuts already. So for example, like if I do Control O to open a file, setting the shortcut is as simple as saying when you press Control O, you're going to trigger the same function than if you go to File, Open. Same for same for close. Could also have, as you can see, a file browser integrated. And the good thing is that it's cross-platform. So while you can put your own file browser if you want, why not? By default, you can use Qt file browser, which will be integrated in the file system. So sorry, in the OS. So that's truly portable, meaning that the same code will work on Linux, Mac, or Windows. So another question is, what advice would you give to practice Qt? So my advice is to first, like, think of it from the user point of view. Like, what do you want to, which kind of experience do you want to give the user? You're going to do the interface for. Either for you, you're the user. So what do you want? Like, do you want something where you can type? Do you want, like you see a drop-down menu for that? Like, for example, like, do you want to have a drop-down menu to have multiple options? And the other thing is to, maybe you can pick up a basic interface and try to recreate this stuff in Qt. So pick up something you like, or like go to, like, there's a lot of like designers who like post mock-up of UI, so you can just take them and see how can you make them. The other advice I have is to look at Qt documentation. So I always have it open, and that's something we're going to cover in the next session. It's like how to read the documentation. But I can give you a small preview. Give me 2 seconds. So, for example, when I look at the Q push button, I wanted to know what were the signal. So I say, okay, like, we have the abstract button and we have other signal over there. And if you go to, I'm going to put the link to it. Over there. So yeah, so basically, if you look at the documentation here, you can just browse around and see, okay, what's look interesting. So you can see that Qt have a lot of things to deal with Bluetooth and to do 3D and NFCs and stuff like that. There's even like a web browser, or you can even do QML and things like that. There's even SQL integration, actually. But you can just look at the Qt widget, basically. So just browse around. That's my advice. Just browse around and in Qt widget and see what you have access to. So like, go there and say, okay, like, oh, I see something called like calendar widgets. Why is that? So often you have a small like screenshot. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. That's a calendar. So you can just see, okay, if I do an interface and if I create a calendar, do I have something? So hopefully it will work. Yeah. So you can see that I just created a calendar here. Okay, you may have to resize the widget a bit, but that gives you an idea of like how to approach things. Like, okay, there's a calendar. What can I do with it? I think there's also a slider. So we're going to go over like in the next session. We're going to go over most of the common one, like Q slider, Q combo box, and things like that. So you can see here, I created like a small slider, very, very tiny. You can have it, you can have created vertical or horizontal, for example. So yeah, so that's my advice, to just like look around and look at also at Qt Designer. That can help you a lot as well to just paste stuff around. Create a canvas with square. You can create a canvas with square. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like you have the you can paint anything you want. So like you can implement the painter method, and you can paint basically. You can draw a line. You can draw polygons. Anything you want. So if you want, you can create a window where like 4 square or 6 square, or like of different color as well. You can repurpose the Q buttons as well. So that's something we're going to look into next sessions, like how to, when you have more than one widget, how we can use layouts to position our widgets around. But if you want, you can have you do need a layout for that. But you can have 2 buttons basically side by side. That's kind of like in the preview of the session 2, that's kind of like how we do it here. So you have a text field and then you have a run button. So you can have you have a grid layout that you can use. So it's a grid, so you can say put this widget into like row 1, column 1, and so on. So you can organize your widget like that as well. So technically, if you want to have square, like colored square, for example, which executes some function, you could create a grid layout and put a button in your grid, even dynamically actually, and just assign a random color and execute a function for it. So I don't know if anybody has any other question, maybe. I'm going to give like 1 minute for anybody who have any question. But hopefully, by the end of today, you can write a small application who can run, we have a button and you can run your code. So that was the goal of this session, is to be able to get introduced to Qt and create a small and very simple application with one button to execute code, which could be very, very interesting if you ever deal with people who are not familiar with command line or who don't like command line. That's something rather interesting. I know that myself deal with artists in my profession a lot, and while they do have command line tools, some of them are not very technical, and they do like to have interface. It's also a way to display information in a way that you can control. So that's something I like to have. Like, I like to give more options by command line, for example, and have a simpler interface where I can control what's coming in. So something you can do also with widgets is, like you've seen in the example I gave here, with the computer, you can basically control like which algorithm we're going to use to filter our curve. So for example, like instead of relying on people to know the name that they need to give, you can control what they give. For example, you can also trigger some widgets if you, so for example, like what you could do, use an example here. You could say, oh, if you click on preserve edge, you could basically show like a bunch of options. So that's something like you can basically expand and have various level of complexity. That's something I like to do as well. Like, I like to show different level of complexity. So it's like, okay, this thing is semi-automated for people. It's like one or two things to click on. But if you want, you can click, for example, on the option, and you can expose a bit more information. For people who are a bit more familiar, people will need a bit more control. But after that, we go into user experience. So, which is something rather big. Okay, we're going to give 1 more minute to everybody, and we can wrap up early, I think. So the next session will be on. So thank you first, everybody who came to this session. Now it's great to see a lot of people coming in, turning in, and being interested in Qt. And the next session will be on January 25th at the same time. And like I showed you, we're going to go through how to create the student interface. So the goal of the next session is will be more focused on layout. So how to place your widgets in your window, as well as how to interact with the user. So how to get information from them and how to give them a choice and things like that. And you can find more resources related to this talk. Actually, it's not yet on Women Who Code Python GitHub, but it will be there shortly. You can always go to the Git URL given in our Slack. And if you have any more questions, you can find me on Slack on the Intro to Qt channel, or you can send me an email if you prefer as well.